The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. Good Thursday morning. This is Eric Seymour with the National Weather Service in Wakefield, and I'm going to be going through the briefing today for what we're expecting over the next 7 days or so. So right now it looks like a fairly benign next 7 days, which I'm sure everyone is will be happy with. Wanted to start off with the satellite this morning, and I think it'll kind of help paint the picture, kind of what pattern we're going to be dealing with over the next 7 to 10 days. Um, if you notice, I want to draw your attention to the kind of the southwestern part of the U.S. Notice really not seeing any clouds in that area, and that's because we have a large area of high pressure that's actually sitting over that part of the country right now. If you saw some of the temperatures in Arizona yesterday, they're already hitting some triple figure values out there. So have a very large area of high pressure that's allowing that heat to build. And that feature is going to be fairly persistent over the next 7 to 10 days. So, with that being the case, we're seeing clouds and moisture from the Pacific flowing into the Pacific Northwest across Washington State and gradually right across the U.S.-Canadian border. And then gradually we're seeing systems then take the dip back down into the Great Lakes. And then occasionally we're getting a cold front that kind of will move through here. So we're going to see kind of the roller coaster ride as far as temperatures go over the next few days. Ahead of the fronts, we'll see the nice warm up. Once the fronts go through, we'll see the temperatures fall back down kind of below, not as cold as we've been the last couple of days, but definitely still kind of cool for this time of the year. And that's really the pattern that's going to persist for the next 7 days. We should start to eventually see the ridge of high pressure in the west break down and start to slide east as we get toward the end of the month and maybe in the beginning parts of April. So, but for the next 7 to 10 days or so, I think this pattern is going to be fairly persistent. So when we look at the actual kind of frontal boundary map, starting where we are this morning, we do have a weak system that's kind of moving through the Great Lakes right now. Shouldn't really impact us. It's kind of generating the cloud cover to the north across Pennsylvania, New York. We do have a warm front in the center part of the country that's going to be moving northward. And notice the areas of low pressure that are up in Canada. Those will gradually, as they make the turn over the top of the ridge and start heading southeast, will eventually impact us as we get into Friday and then again Sunday into Monday. So looking at tomorrow morning, we do see one of those areas of low pressure diving down into the Great Lakes. The system that's in the Great Lakes right now has already moved off into eastern Canada. And we still do have a little bit of areas of cooler high pressure to the north that are going to be trying to make their way down into the U.S. And as we move into the day on Saturday, we actually do get the first of those frontal boundaries sagging in. Some of the models actually get the boundary pretty close to the North Carolina, South Carolina border briefly during the day Saturday. But there's not a lot of cold air behind us. It's not like the cold air we had come in Tuesday, Wednesday. Temperatures, really shouldn't, drop too much. As a matter of fact, with the kind of how quickly this boundary goes through and weakens on Saturday, we're expecting temperatures to really, the warming trend to really continue into the day Saturday. And then by the time we get to Sunday, we're back in the strong southwesterly flow, waiting for this next front to come in Sunday night into Monday. So we should see a pretty significant warm up. Now, once we get to Monday, Tuesday, the front goes through. We actually do get one of these pretty good shots of cooler Canadian air coming in. So, once we get the front through, a little bit of chance for shower activity out, things dry out the early part of next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then gradually as the high moves off the coast, we get back into a warming trend again. So that's what I said. This pattern is kind of going to persist really for the next 7 days with these kind of quick warm ups and then quick cool downs. When we look at the temperatures over the next kind of 3 days, so the warm up gradually starts to take off on Friday. Temperatures getting into the mainly into the mid to upper 60s. As we move into Sunday or into Saturday, that warming trend continues. A little bit concerned maybe for any places along the water, especially with some of the southeasterly flow and the cold water still. May be enough that we keep some of those areas a little bit cooler. That'll be something we'll have to refine as we go through the next day or so. But gradually with the southwesterly flow, once that initial front kind of comes in on Friday, weakens, dissipates, and then the southwesterly flow kicks back in, we'll see the temperature, especially in the southwestern parts of the area, warming back up into the mid to upper 70s. And then with the strong southwest flow on Sunday, that warming trend continues, and we start seeing some 80-degree temperatures kicking back in before that next cold front comes in, and we cool things down. One of the other things that we'll be dealing with, I'm going to jump into the slides at this point, is really not seeing a lot of rain. One of the things the other things you can take from the satellite imagery is you notice with the flow coming in through the Pacific, that's our only source of moisture. And so we've got to get Pacific moisture all the way across the country into our area to really see rain. There's not a lot of Gulf moisture available to these systems right now, so we don't have a huge source of moisture. So anything that's coming in with these fronts is going to be fairly limited as far as precipitation goes. So you can see with the initial boundary coming in Friday night into Saturday morning, really we're talking 1/10 of an inch of precip or less. Not a whole lot of significant rainfall there. And even looking at the chances of rain right now, we're talking, pretty much less than 50% chance of rain in most locations. So really not expecting to see a ton of rainfall or anything certainly that would help ease any of the drought conditions at this point. Looking ahead, the image on the right, you can see the Sunday night through Thursday. Really, most of that is limited to what comes in with that boundary. Sunday night into Monday. Again, not a lot of moisture for the system to work with. Maybe as we get toward the coast, portions of the Tidewater, northeast North Carolina, those areas, maybe we get a little bit of Atlantic moisture kind of helping this, and we can squeeze a little bit more out. But even there, we're talking still, 1/10 of an inch of precipitation. So again, not a lot of rainfall through the next 7 days that would help easing any of the drought conditions. So there's there's kind of the regional summary right now. We see the good, the nice little warm up here for the weekend with temperatures. And then when you look at, Monday, still kind of mild Monday, kind of depends on where that frontal boundary is, where those temperatures are. So could see a little bit of variation there on Monday, depending upon how quick that front comes in. Could see temperatures a little bit cooler, or if the front's a little bit slower, maybe it's still a little bit of a milder day on Monday before the front goes through. But then Tuesday, Wednesday, you can see the quick drop off and readings getting down into the into the 50s and highs in the 50s, maybe recovering into the low 60s by Wednesday. And then the low temperatures, we even see a few places in the far northwest still getting down to around freezing with the boundary coming in Tuesday morning. So again, that's kind of the overall pattern that we're going to be in. We're going to be in this kind of roller coaster ride over the next 7 to 10 days, where you see a brief warm up and then things cool back down again. All right, did get a little bit of improvement in the drought monitor last week. Just kind of had a little circle of area that did not have any drought across portions of Lake Dinwiddie, Nottoway, Southern Chesterfield, those areas, Amelia County. But now we're starting to see a little bit of improvement from the rain that we've had across, stretching into the peninsula, getting, parts of, Yorktown, those areas seeing a little bit of improvement. The rest of the area, we're still kind of under the abnormally dry, moderate drought type conditions. And even in the far southwest, still dealing with a little bit of the severe drought. So the bad thing is, with us not getting a lot of rain in the next 7 to 10 days, you're not going to see much improvement there. The other thing is, as we start to see vegetation coming out, a lot of that moisture that's in the ground right now will quickly get used up by that vegetation. So we still need to be getting our rain to kind of keep conditions from worsening. So that'll be something we'll need to be keeping an eye on over the next couple of weeks. Looking ahead next 7 to 10 days, notice with the temperature outlook, March 26th to April 1st, looks a lot like the pattern we're in right now, where we have the heat and the west, you have that ridge of high pressure, and the storm track is definitely in a northwesterly flow coming from Canada through the Great Lakes into the Northeast. So, that'll be something we'll be kind of watching. It looks like that roller coaster pattern and temperatures that we're expecting next week continues through the end of the month. So You got a pretty good gradient in here as far as your above normal, below normal temperatures. So it doesn't take much variation for some of that to shift a little bit. So, right now, the way things look, I think we'll probably just continue to see, out ahead of the frontal boundaries, we'll see that nice warm up. And then when the front goes through, we'll see the temperatures drop down below normal again. So I think that pattern really just continues through the end of the month. And precip wise, because we're in that northwest flow pattern, don't expect to see a lot of precipitation. So right now, looks like the outlook is again for below normal temperatures. And again, that falls in with what the current weather pattern and storm track looks like. All right, I want to jump out of the slides here just for a second. And as we're coming up toward the beginning of April, wanted to just touch real quickly on, especially with the temperature still kind of oscillating quite a bit and still seeing Sabrinius getting down below freezing. This is a map that shows when we, based upon climatology, when the growing season should begin. So for most of our area, the growing season would begin on April the 1st. And then when you get to some of our far northwest counties, the climatological last freeze date, the kind of the median date of that really is much closer to April the 11th. So the areas that are in brown, we will likely start the growing season products at that point in time. So if we do have temperatures getting down below freezing, you'll see some of those freeze warning products. And again, that would begin on the brown areas April 1st. The green areas would be more on April the 11th. So sometimes we adjust it based upon, kind of if we do have a good warm up, things like that, things start to really actively get going, growing, we may adjust it. But generally speaking, that's what you can expect from when we'll start issuing those frost advisories or freeze warnings. The brown area would be April 1st. The green area would be on April the 11th. Okay, so moving back into the slides, we're going to jump into the marine threat. And based upon the weather conditions right now, really not expecting anything hugely significant on the marine. I think each time we get one of these fronts moving through, especially on the bay, there could be a brief period of time where we get up into small craft conditions over the next, kind of 3 to 5 days. But right now, I'm not seeing anything that would suggest, getting up into gale conditions or anything of that nature. And that's kind of what the threat shows here. Front goes through on Friday night. Looks like we get a little bit of a chance. And then again, the same thing on Sunday. And maybe as we get into Monday, get a little bit colder air. Maybe it covers more of the coastal waters as well. You can see a little bit more of a bump on the coastal waters. But overall, really not seeing anything, tremendously strong as far as winds go over the next 5 days. Looking at the max winds, you can see really kind of targeting that time period, Friday into Friday night, where we see, a little bit of an enhancement out ahead of the frontal boundary. Again, not much behind the front, partly because we don't have a lot of cold air behind the front. So maybe see, again, a little bit of an enhancement close enough that maybe we get some small craft conditions, on the bay, maybe some of the area rivers, but looks like probably on most of the coastal waters will probably be just below small craft conditions. Although it may be kind of close with some of these max gusts getting up, up into the 25 to 30 range for kind of the northern parts of our marine waters. So looking ahead, that's kind of what you got for Friday night. Again, Monday night could again see a good uptick in the winds based upon the fact that we do get a little bit of colder air coming in on that next shot behind that front Monday into Monday night. So again, could see some small craft conditions, but again, really not expecting anything more than that. And from your wave heights, you do get a little bit of a bump up in the waves, but again, nothing really too significant. Most locations, kind of maxing out, in the 5 foot range. Okay, so occasional waves could see a little bit higher than that, but overall, you're really talking 4 to 5 feet as max over the next 72 hours. All right, so overall right now, we do expect the warming trend today through Sunday. Again, we do have that one boundary coming in Friday night into Saturday morning that could provide us a chance of showers. But overall, there's not a lot of cold air behind it, so really don't expect it to, kind of cool things off too much. Again, maybe if we get a little bit of easterly flow as the front initially starts to clear on Saturday, could keep some of the coastal areas just a hair cooler. than what we're thinking right now, just due to the temperature of the waters. But right now, once that flow turns southwest, especially into Sunday, we'll see the temperatures really start to climb and warm up again. We do get a front coming in during the early part of next week. Looks like sometime on the day Monday. So again, timing affects whether we see another mild day or whether things cool off a little bit quicker. Again, chance of showers, but really with both of these events, with the fronts coming in, just not a lot of moisture to work with. So precipitation amounts will be pretty light as these boundaries go through. So that's pretty much everything we have right now. Thank you guys for attending today, and we will talk with you all again on Monday. Have a great weekend.